In week 4, our bonus gem, Jaden Reed, propelled us to 2 top 10 finishes in the big Battle Royale contest on Underdog for just under $10,000 in winnings. Then last week, our lead quarterback gem and cover boy Joe Burrow helped us take down the $100 DEBOM contest for another $6,000. And just in time for our Deposit Kingdom picks catching fire, Underdog has dropped a Week 6 Battle Royale contest with a $50,000 top prize. And in this video, we'll dish out 5 Week 6 sleepers, 1 at each position, and a bonus, and share 3 unique angles to attack in Week 6 drafts. I'm Pete Overzet, this is the Deposit Kingdom, and one of you watching this video is gonna win $50K this week. I can feel it. First up, we got our quarterback. And we are rolling with Bucks quarterback Baker Mayfield at New Orleans. ADP of 35.3 makes him the quarterback 10 on Underdog. He has a $6,500 price tag on DraftKings. Baker has been dealing this year. He finished as the QB3 in week 4 with 28.9 points versus the Eagles, and then he followed that up with a QB7 finish last week versus the Falcons. He's only had 1 week this season where he's finished as the QB7 or lower, and that was in week 3 versus the best pass defense in football, the Broncos. And despite all of this, he's just the QB10 on Underdog this week and has a current projected ownership of 14.5%, which you can see here via the Draft Caddy. This is a somewhat similar play to Burrow last week, though it's slightly trickier because both of his stacking options, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, are fairly popular. Still, when you have a quarterback who is rarely getting drafted like Baker with proven top 5 overall upside, I want to be getting him onto a bunch of teams. So how to execute this? In the big Battle Royale, I'll be looking to either skinny stack Baker with one of Evans or Godwin, or in some instances, a double stack with him and Cade Otton, and then one of those pass catchers. Later on in the video, I'll explain why I don't love the idea of double stacking Baker with both Evans and Godwin. As for Otton, he has a 20% target share over the past 3 weeks, and the Saints have allowed the 10th most points to opposing tight ends. All right, let's move to running back, where we're rolling with Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins at Denver. I know, scary. ADP of 35.5, running back 13 on Underdog. He has a $6,200 price tag on DraftKings. After a scorching hot start to the season with 2 top 5 finishes, Dobbins has come crashing down to earth in week 3 and week 4. But I think this is a sneaky good spot for him to rebound, and he's projected for only 5% ownership. The Chargers are coming off a bye, and the only other running back in this offense who has seen significant touches this year, Gus Edwards, is unlikely to play. And we could see some of the rookie Kamani Vidal for the first time, but this seems like a spot where we get 20 plus touches for J.K. Dobbins. We know the Chargers want to run the ball, and the truth is the Broncos are way more tough against the pass than they are the run. Kenneth Walker tagged these guys for 100 plus yards and a TD in week 1, and they really just haven't played that many great running back teams other than the Jets, and that was that weird monsoon game. So I think you can attack the Broncos on the ground, and this is one of those classic ignore the perceived tough matchup and chase the touches kind of play. How I'd execute this? I'd just use Dobbins as a one-off piece at the end of your drafts. There aren't really any correlated angles I want to mess with here. On to our wide receiver gem. It is none other than Rashid Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints. They are at home versus Tampa Bay. He has an ADP of 35.6, which makes him the wide receiver 22 on Underdog, and he has a really nice tag on DraftKings as well at 5,600. So the reason he's a gem here is because no one wants to deal with the Saints pass catchers this week with rookie quarterback Spencer Rattler taking over for Derek Carr. But I believe the kids call this a Rockwell meme. How do I do this? I don't think there is much of a downgrade for the pass catchers here. I'm going to have to work on that. Shaheed, who's projected for less than 4% ownership, has been the alpha in this offense all year. He has a 26% targets per route run on the year and a 27% target share. Those are elite numbers. He now gets to square off with a Bucs secondary that just gave up 500 plus passing yards to the Falcons last week. And Shaheed has only 1 week this year where he's finished lower than the wide receiver 18. It's pretty nuts when most people think of this guy as a boom bust deep threat, how consistent he's been. So how do you execute this? I don't think you need to stack him with Rattler in the 6-person contest. It's probably too thin, but you can play him as a one-off or as a bring back to Baker stacks. And I'll share a particularly fun way to stack him when we hop in drafts in a few minutes. Let's get to our tight end gem though, and we're rolling with Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth. They're at Las Vegas this week. He has an ADP of 35.9. That makes him the tight end 13 on Underdog, and he has a $4,300 price tag on DraftKings. This one's really straightforward. Freiermuth is barely getting drafted. He has a projection for only 3% ownership, but everything has been trending in the right direction for him. He leads the Steelers with 2 receiving touchdowns, and he's number 2 behind Pickens in all of the other categories: 23 targets, 20 receptions, and 178 receiving yards. This is a great matchup too. The Raiders are 31st in defensive pass DVOA against tight ends, and they're also going to be without their strong safety, Marcus Epps, who's now on IR with a knee injury. As far as how to use Freiermuth, you can use him as just a one-off tight end if you're trying to get a unique piece into your lineup, or you can stack him with Justin Fields, who almost made the cut as our quarterback gem over Baker. It was neck and neck. I do really like Fields this week, and I like Fields with Freiermuth specifically. And speaking of Steelers, let's hit our bonus gem. And yes, it's the second time he's made an appearance in this space. We're going with Najee Harris, running back for the Steelers at Las Vegas, like Freiermuth. ADP's 35.8. That makes him the RB15 on Underdog, and he has a $5,800 price tag on DraftKings. He has a projected ownership of only 4%, and yet so many things are setting up for a Najee game. And I know we haven't gotten it this year. He's been, pretty inefficient with his touches. The Steelers offense really hasn't gotten rolling other than that one game that Justin Fields dominated. But let's set the table here. Jalen Warren's doubtful. Cordero Patterson is out again. And Najee is due for positive regression as he has yet to fall in the end zone this year, despite having at least 70 yards in 16 opportunities in every game. And the Raiders have allowed the 6th highest fantasy boost, 4.6, to the running back position. You can see that via our Fantasy Life defense versus position tool. And the Raiders might not have their top defenders, defensive tackle Christian Wilkins with a foot injury, and their linebacker Divine Diablo. Apologies if I said that wrong. I'm trying my best with the defensive stuff, guys. He has an oblique injury. So how to execute this? Najee can be used as a one-off, but because of the low team total, I likely wouldn't use him with either Fields or Freiermuth. I don't really want to be overly investing in the Steelers. I'd rather pick my spots and bet on one of Najee or Freiermuth scoring the touchdowns. All right, so there's our gems, and what we always like to do once we got our gems established is to build a pick'em entry on Underdog, and I hope you guys tailed us last week because we had 2 different versions of the same pick'em entry. Both of them featured a different Bengals pass catcher scoring a touchdown, and both of them hit because Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase scored a touchdown, and Joe Burrow to T. Higgins combined for a touchdown as well. So let's see if we can keep the heater rolling here. And to kick us off, we're going to go with J.K. Dobbins, higher than 57.5 rushing yards. We're going to go with Najee Harris to score a TD. This is the week he bucks the trend. We're going to take Pat Freiermuth higher than 30.5 receiving yards. We're going to take Rashid Shaheed to score a touchdown. Now, I'll be honest, at the time of recording this video, there was nothing else in the lobby for Rashid Shaheed. I'd be very interested in whatever his yardage number is. So if you're feeling less frisky and you want to swap out the TD for the yardage, go for it. But as of right now, I'm rolling with this touchdown number here. And Baker Mayfield, finally, to throw more than 234.5 passing yards. I'll drop the link down in the show notes in the description. If you guys want to tail it, you just click it. It'll populate it up in your Underdog contest, and we can all sweat this out together. Also, be sure to take advantage of a boost if you have it in the lobby. Underdog's been doing all kinds of special boosts for October. There was one in my account where I was able to get 31% boost on an entry. So add it to this entry and you can get an even bigger payout if all of the picks hit. And as always, if you're new to Underdog, and if you've made it this far, well, congratulations, you're a sick pup. But then I got news for you. They're offering up to a $1,000 deposit match when you use promo code Pete. They'll also give you an additional pick'em special, so take advantage of that if you haven't signed up before. That's promo code Pete. Every week we do a little bit of evergreen strategy, so not just specific on the plays for that week, but looking out, zooming out. What are the kind of principles, the tips and tricks that can help us be a consistently profitable player on Underdog? And I want to highlight a dynamic that played out last week when I finished first place in DEBOM for that 6K prize. In that DEBOM contest, if you're not familiar, it's a small field $100 buy-in, 5 entry max contest with only 444 total entries. And I managed to win this contest with the exact macro strategy I outlined 2 weeks ago about leaning into correlation more in the small field contest than in the large field battle royale. I took down first place with a Bengals-Ravens game stack. I had Burrow to both Chase and Higgins, and then Zay Flowers with the bring back. And then I had Kyren Williams at running back and George Kittle at tight end. And the thought here for the small field was, if Burrow goes nuts, I get 2 cracks at the wide receiver who goes nuclear. And even if one of them doesn't have a ceiling game, I could still win the tournament because it's such a small tournament and you don't have to be perfect in these. The same isn't true though for the big battle royale, where you need high-end scores from every single one of your positions to win. Of course, you guys know what happened. Both T and Chase went nuts, and a Burrow double stack also took down the large field battle royale. For what it's worth, I had 0 Burrow double stacks in the large field stuff. I only played it in the small field, including the Deposit Kingdom contest, which we're gonna review in a second. My hunch though, is that the field is going to overreact to this Burrow double stack hitting and force way too many double stacks in the week 6 battle royale contest. But let's put this in perspective. Let's try to actually figure out where we can learn from what happened. Burrow, Chase, and Higgins combined for 95.88 points last week. That kind of output from a double stack is only going to happen 1 or 2 times a season. So I think it would be a mistake to chase this in the large battle royale. Because to me, the real takeaway from the Burrow double stack hitting isn't the double stack itself, but it's the draft percentages for the individual pieces in the stack. Burrow and T were both not getting drafted in the majority of contests. And, you know, we talk about draft percentage and ownership a lot around here. I think we can help illustrate the impact of drafting players who are low owned if we look at the raw numbers of how many times these Bengals pieces were drafted versus, say, a much more popular stack last week that involved the Packers. And we got to give a shout out to Patrick Donovan for adding Battle Royale data to his terrific site, bbmdb.com. We can quickly pull these numbers up. I highly recommend heading over there, playing with it. He, of course, also has all of the Best Ball Mania data if you want to slice and dice that. But here we're going to look at just the week 5 battle royale data, and I want to hit you with a few numbers. So first of all, Jordan Love, who is getting drafted in every contest, was on 9,364 teams. Joe Burrow was only on 3,008 teams. So right there alone, there were over 3 times as many Love teams as there were Burrow teams. Now let's look at the popular stacking partners for both of these. So Jordan Love was stacked with Jaden Reed on 4,318 teams. Burrow was stacked with Jamar Chase, who was also a first-round pick like Reed, on less than 2,000 teams. So it wasn't quite 3 times as many Love Reed stacks as Burrow Chase, but still over 2,000 more Green Bay skinny stacks than Cincinnati stack. Now let's look at the double stacks. So Jordan Love was stacked with Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks 669 times. Jordan Love was stacked with Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft, the other popular stacking partner, 1,000 times. Now let's put that in perspective with the Joe Burrow double stack. He was stacked with Chase and Higgins only 189 times. So in looking at these trios, we can actually separate kind of the double stacking by the field. You know, the field wasn't doing it a ton in general, but they're still doing it way, way more with players who have ADPs of, 34, 33 and higher. Those are the players getting drafted in the majority of contests. And that's exactly what happened here. There were nearly 3 times as many of the Love double stacks than the premium Burrow double stacks. And so what made the Burrow double stack so powerful wasn't the double stack itself. It was the fact that there were only 787 total Burrow and Higgins teams, and you compare that to 2,649 Love and Wicks teams. Put it this way, If Love and Wicks did what Burrow and Higgins did, you would have been competing with 1,862 more teams at the top than with what you were competing with Burrow and Higgins teams. That is a staggering amount of teams. And this is why the scrolling down is so powerful. Because when I tell you there were over 3 times as many Love Wicks teams as Burrow Higgins, it almost sounds impossible. Like, how could that happen? In what universe is Love Wicks 3 times as likely to hit as Burrow T? Yet, this is the exact dynamic that plays out week after week in this contest because people can't help themselves but be anchored to ADP. So the TLDR here, and I realize I went long in showing you all those numbers, but it's continue to be more open to double stacking in the smaller contests, like the bomb, like the fullback dive. And don't chase the doubles in the large battle royale if the majority of the pieces are getting drafted at a high frequency. The real secret to winning in week 5 was the same secret to winning in week 4. Draft players who aren't getting drafted a ton, who don't project much differently than the players who are getting drafted a ton. We'll continue to do our best to highlight these spots each and every week, so make sure you guys are subscribed to the Deposit Kingdom channel. All right, before we hop in some drafts, we got to shout out the winner of the Deposit Kingdom Weekly League for Week 5. DKDUB took down the 2K top prize. We got it bigger and better in Week 5, doubled that first place prize up to 2K, and he had, not coincidentally, a Joe Burrow double stack lineup. It also had Josh Jacobs and Tucker Kraft, and then a one-off Michael Pittman. And of course, I love the construction of this team for a smaller field contest. It took 6 lineup spots and only had to get 3 things right, correct? You know, the Bengals passing game, the Packers non-wide receivers in Jacobs and Kraft, and then a one-off Colt. So that's what we're trying to do with correlation, eliminate the number of things we have to get right. And I did have a near identical lineup in this contest, but I had Debo instead of Michael Pittman. And man, what a sick world we live in where Michael Pittman outscores Debo. I would have taken that down if Debo had flipped that. But the Deposit Kingdom Week 6 League is going to go live on Underdog at 3 p.m. Eastern on Friday. So hop in there, scroll over on the carousel until you see the $10 3 Max Deposit Kingdom Weekly League. And I'll recap the results on the portfolio review every Monday at 10 a.m. That's over on my live stream channel. I recap all of the DFS action every Monday morning on both DraftKings and Underdog. And then, of course, we'll always spotlight the winner here in these weekly videos. All right, let's hop into some drafts with 3 strategic angles to execute in week 6. All right, the first draft angle we are going to execute here is called the Baker double stack. And I'm putting the double in quotation marks because we're not going to do Baker with both Godwin and Evans. We're actually not even going to do Baker with Godwin or Evans and then Cade Otton. I actually think that's viable, but we're going to mash up 2 of our gems here. We're going to do Baker with one of Godwin or Evans and then Rashid Shaheed as the bring back. And the thought here is I don't ever want to really lean into forcing too much correlation bringbacks in these large field BR because sometimes I think it's, adding another level of having to get something right. But because Rashid Shaheed projects so well, and because it just so happens to be in this game, and because he's not getting drafted in the majority of these contests, I love the angle of getting him onto Baker skinny stack teams. And then when it hits, right, it speeds up the game. If Shaheed's scoring a long touchdown, it means the Bucs are getting the ball back. It means they're likely in a trailing script. There's just lots of ways this can work out well for us with how Rashid Shaheed scores and just how big of a part of the offense and game plan he's been. So what we're going to do here, we're going to put Evans, Godwin, Baker, and Shaheed in our queue here. So then we'll take one of Evans or Godwin, and then we'll know here at the beginning what we're kind of looking for, right? We know we're going to need a tight end because this stack is quarterback with 2 wide receivers that we're using. And then we know we're going to need at least 1 running back, and then we'll have 1 spot to play with. So ideally at the top here at 1-4, we will take a running back. I think that's kind of ideal. And then at 9, what we could do is, again, take best available player. Ideally, that could be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And then we will round out this team. So let's see what falls to us at 1-4 here. Barkley goes. Let's go ahead and take Gibbs just because I think the running backs get a little more thinned out. Let's get access to this this big game, big team total here for the Lions, and we'll grab Jahmyr Gibbs. And then I think this spot here at 9 is going to be kind of dealer's choice. Or we end up just reaching for Evans. But because we have Godwin, I'd kind of like to push it. You know, our next pick is at 16. Evans has an ADP of 15. Basically, if we don't get Evans at 16, we just take Godwin there. So it's not a big deal. And then the other thing we'll be looking for, obviously, is the tight end. Let's go double running back here. And this will then mean we'll have one of Evans or Godwin and Shaheed as our wide receivers, and we'll get this kind of running back start. And then we can make a decision on when to go with tight end. Trey McBride went early in this one. He went at 7. Basically, I think if Evans is here at 16, we'll take him and then go tight end in the 4th round. And then if Evans is gone, we'll just grab our tight end here. So Evans does go. So we'll grab the tight end. I'm just going to kind of IKB this a little bit. I really like Brock Bowers this week of all the early tight ends if I'm willing to. And Jake Ferguson goes. So this will work out well. Let's take Brock Bowers here as our tight end. And then the rest of this team is going to draft itself, right? Because we already outlined this. We're going to go Godwin, Baker, and Shaheed. Although I guess I'm playing with a little bit of fire there. Maybe I should have taken Godwin first because he has a higher, or Brock Bowers has a lower ADP than Godwin. So please let me get, or I'm going to start over this video. Please let me get Godwin here. Thank you. All right. I don't have to start re-recording this again. There you go. You got a little peek behind the curtain. So we grab Chris Godwin. And again, too, so the way I like to think about these teams, right? Gibbs, Bijan, Godwin, Brock Bowers, those guys are all getting drafted in the majority of contests. And we can even look at this ownership here thanks to the Draft Caddy. Here, 100%, Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's see, Bijan. Bijan, 100%. That's that green number right there. You guys can get this to populate on your screen when you're drafting via the draftcaddy.com. It's a Chrome plugin. They also have it for Safari if you draft over there, but super valuable when kind of reviewing this stuff. So then we can look at Godwin. He's not quite at 100%. He's at 88%, but still the majority of contests. And then Brock Bowers, 92.9%. So 4 chalky players. You can maybe argue maybe these 4 together aren't on a ton of teams, but individually, these are all going to be very popular. But then we look at Baker, 14.3%, and Rashid Shaheed at 4.3%. So that is really where we are going to get our uniqueness on this team. And that gives us kind of 2 plays that the majority of rosters won't have. So this is another little thing here. Even though I don't think anyone's going to take Baker, we still do not have to take Baker here because because I don't think anyone's going to take Shaheed. We could take Baker here, but the teams behind us all have quarterbacks. So you always take your wide receiver ahead when that is the case. If I wasn't assured getting Baker, maybe the Evans team was behind us, I would just take him here knowing it's less likely for Shaheed to go. But because I'm going to eyeball what these teams behind me are doing, you can see here they all have quarterback. We're going to take Shaheed, and then we're going to grab Baker Mayfield. I can push the plane because I know I'm getting Baker, and this team is done. So here's our idea, a Baker to Godwin with a Rashid Shaheed bring back. We get in 2 of the best running back plays on the slate, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan, and then one of the best tight ends. This is exactly how I like to play BR. Get in some really good plays at the top, correlate around one of those pieces. It happens to be Godwin. And then we get a unique stack, Baker to Godwin, and then a unique bring back in Rashid Shaheed here. So there is our first team. Let's now hop in a second one, and I'll tell you guys what we're going to do here. All right. So in that one, Baker and Shaheed were kind of our scrolls. For this one, we are going to do the double running back scroll. So our last 2 picks are going to be our 2 gems from the video, J.K. Dobbins and Najee Harris. These guys both have low ownership on their own. You can see here J.K. Dobbins getting drafted in less than 10% of these, Najee Harris less than 3%. And if we combine these two together, I would wager there are going to be very, very few teams with both of these as their running backs. So now that we hopped in the draft, we can kind of reverse engineer what we're going to be doing. And one thing we know is we're not taking any running backs because we're saving our running back spots for these last two. So that means we're looking at quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end. It would be very nice to get CeeDee Lamb here at 102. That should happen by ADP. Although a decent amount of people do seem to take CeeDee Lamb at 101 as well. So we shall see. If we don't get CeeDee Lamb here, we'll just take Amon-Ra St. Brown to preserve our two running back slots. And then we'll be thinking through a quarterback, another wide receiver, and then a tight end. So let's see what this drafter from the one hole does. Kind of hope they go Barkley, but we will make do regardless. A no Badger, right? Oh, they go Henry. I was about to say the no Badgers always for sure going Barkley, but then they said hold my beer. I will take Henry instead. So we will get CeeDee Lamb here at 101. And we will see what comes back to us. But we know pick 26 can be Dobbins. We know pick 35 can be Najee. And we can figure out how we want to build this team out. I'm going to put Dak Prescott in the queue. I don't think it's mandatory to take Dak Prescott on CeeDee Lamb teams, but he's obviously a priority target. You know, I often think through the frequency that I would want to be stacking my early round picks. I think with a guy like CeeDee Lamb, a pretty good chunk of the time. My, my bro math here, back of the napkin, I don't know, 60, 70% of the time, I think I would like Lamb with Dak. There are certain instances, say you got a Jared Goff, say you're playing another rushing quarterback who has a higher ceiling, say you're trying to build out that backdoor stack with a Baker and an Evans. I think there are avenues where it is feasible, but in general, if CeeDee Lamb is giving us a nuke game, it's probably pretty likely that Dak is having a really good game as well. But there were games last year too where, because CeeDee Lamb was such a large part of the offense, that he could really consolidate a lot of that production. They're also using him on some carries now too. So there's, paths to him, getting an end around touchdown or something like that Dak doesn't benefit from, that would keep Dak's score intact. So I want to be open to not having to have Dak with CeeDee, but it's just something to think about here. So we should land in a nice sweet spot here at pick 11 to grab a wide receiver. I'd love to get Jaden Reed, AJ Brown. Maybe we get Mike Evans on this team since we got Godwin on the other one. We'll just see how this shakes out here. The Lamar Jackson ADP is really interesting this week. He has been a first rounder. He opened up as the 101, I want to say, when I first took a peek at ranks. He slid here to 6.7. I do not think I will have a ton of Lamar at those prices. I think there ends up just being a little bit too much opportunity cost as far as the kind of skill position players you're passing up on. We talk about it a lot. There's only 8 or 9 players on each slate, running backs, wide receivers, who can really break the slate. And so when you're taking Lamar instead of a Bijan, instead of a Jaden Reed, that's a little tougher for me to stomach. So I won't have a full fade. I draft way too many teams for that. But it's something to consider. Let's go ahead and grab Evans here. Fun little kind of angle because we did the Godwin Baker team previously. We'll do the Lamb and Evans start here. And then I think what we'll do, I'm going to grab Trey McBride, who I like a lot, as my tight end. We didn't get McBride on that last team. I'm saving my running back slots. I want to keep Dak in the back pocket. I don't mind Daniels. I think he's, a little more fairly priced. And I know it seems like not a huge distinction, right? It's like, okay, Lamar's going 5 or 6, Jane Daniels going 13. But again, look at who you're passing on to take Daniels. Okay, David Montgomery, Jacobs, Godwin, Zay, like those are decent players, but the opportunity cost is very small. But where you take Lamar, you're passing on Amon-Ra, you're passing on Gibbs. That's a big opportunity cost to me. So I'll definitely have more Daniels this week than I will Lamar for that reason. So we now know we just need a quarterback because we have CeeDee Lamb, Evans, McBride. We know we're going to go Dobbins and Najee. And that means it's just the quarterback. So I always like to stack with the quarterback. So that really gives us 3 options. Dak with CD, Baker with Mike Evans, or Kyler Murray with Trey McBride. So those are some good options there. And we will just see what the room gives us. If this is the first video you guys are watching, I have been doing an evergreen segment in all of the videos. So I've been retitling them too for the specific evergreen segment. And then in the show notes, there's a description, there's a timestamp that you can just skip ahead to that. So if you go click the video, we'll obviously start out with the week 5 gems or whatever, which you're not going to care about because that slate's over, but just go down to the timestamps, go to that evergreen section. And I do really think if you're new to Battle Royale, just consuming even those, 5 to 6 evergreen strategy sections will put you way far ahead of most players right now. I think a lot of those concepts I've already discussed are kind of the, foundational elements of being a really good drafter in these weekly games on Underdog. So this is a unique instance here. Jaden Daniels continues to slide. I'm kind of tempted to take him. I don't have anything going with this Washington-Baltimore game yet. I wonder if this drafter here, the drafter behind me, would be more interested in him because he has Derrick Henry if he's playing that stack. We'll see if Bam Boy here takes him. See, this would be a spot, where if I was just drafting this and I wasn't making the video, what I'd probably do is take Jaden and see if I could get McLaurin here. Just knowing there's not going to be a ton of CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Trey McBride, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin teams because I've drafted these guys mostly at ADP, and there goes Daniels. So I'm not even forced with that decision. Let's go ahead, and the drafter behind us already has 2 running backs, so he's done with running backs. Let's just lock up Dak here. There's no need to push it. And now we have the very similar dynamic that we had in the last draft, where we have 4 players who drafted a good chunk of the time. We can go review these numbers again. CeeDee Lamb, 100%. Evans, 98.6%. McBride, 100%. Dak, 62%. So not quite 100% for Dak, but still 4 players getting taken in the majority of drafts. And now we're going to get 2 players who are not. And this is the spot where you look at projections here, right? And like James Conner and Tony Pollard, they project slightly better, right? Slightly better. Do they project better enough to have a 85% ownership gap for James Conner to a 10%, a 61% for Pollard to a 3%? What I like to argue week in and week out is that is not warranted. Now, any of these plays can make sense on an individual roster. I'm going to have some Tony Pollard this week. He's a guy I like. However, when I do have Tony Pollard, then I'm going to be doing other scroll down picks. It's going to have Rashid Shaheed. It's going to have Pat Freiermuth. I'm going to be looking to pull a uniqueness lever when I select Tony Pollard. So this is the same dynamic that we've been talking about in DFS for a long time, right? Like there's no such thing really as like individual bad chalk. Say on DraftKings this week, Deontay Johnson, going to be very popular. I'm not going to say he's bad chalk. It all depends on how you pair him. If you run out a chalk lineup with all those Carolina and Atlanta pieces that everyone's going to have in their chalk, DFS cash games, then yes, then I would say that's a bad use of Deontay Johnson. But if you're running out a contrarian stack around him, then it's not bad chalk because you do need those projected points. You need the guys who are going to score the most, but you want to get unique in a few spots. So that's how I think about this stuff. It's not that any one player is undraftable. It's all about how do you build around them. If you're taking a lot of guys who are constantly coming in with high ownership, it's just really hard to have a unique path to first place. So that's what I like doing here. I'm basically saying if J.K. Dobbins goes for 20, if Najee Harris goes for 20, I am going to be one of the only people that have that combo. And if some of the other top running backs fail, I have a really clear path to, a top 25, top 50 finish. And again, obviously that's dependent on these other pieces, but it is kind of the thesis of the play. How can I go against far fewer lineups than the majority of the field who are anchored to ADP? So this drafter is going to go. These 2 drafters in front of us already have running back, so I get to push the plane here. I know I'm going to get Najee. So there's the team. Dak to Lamb. We have Evans, McBride, and then Najee and J.K. Dobbins. And let's head in and do one more draft here, our third angle. And we are going to call this one the real FF. So not fantasy football, but Fields and Freiermuth. So I mentioned how Justin Fields just barely missed the cut for being our quarterback gem. I did break the tie in favor of Baker Mayfield, but I am going to go with Justin Fields here. I know there's a little chatter about Russell Wilson, but I do believe Fields is going to get the start. And then Freiermuth here as well. We mentioned him just buried in ADP. And we should look, as we're waiting for this to fill and as we're drafting this, kind of looking at the dynamic at tight end, because I think quarterback and tight end are really where the scroll down plays shine the most. And you can kind of see the disparity here in the gap in ownership. You know, McBride 100%, Ferguson 100, Brock Bowers 93%, Laporta 83%, Kraft 80%. And then we get to tight end 6 here, right? Dallas Goedert goes down to 35%, tight end 7, 28%, and then boom, we get to tight end 8, Likely's 13%, then Taysom at 6, Schultz at 3, Andrews at 8, Pat Freiermuth down here at 3. So it really falls off a cliff. And the whole kind of thesis of this is these tight ends specifically, I'll kind of mark it for myself. You might, disagree and have a different line. But to me, after Laporta, Tucker Kraft, Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, Isaiah Likely, these guys just do not project as that much differently than guys like Schultz, like Freiermuth, like Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz was actually in the mix for the tight end gem for me as well. And all of these guys are dependent on a touchdown to likely end up in the optimal lineup. And I just don't think the touchdown expectation is that different. And so these plays start to feel a little bit more like the trap plays. Again, I'll have some Kraft with Love. I'll probably have some Goddard with Hurts, but I want to be scrolling down here. And this is so funny, guys. Every single week I record these videos, and I normally record the draft portion on Friday mornings. This week I'm ahead of schedule and I'm recording this on Thursday. Davis Maddock, in one of my Deposit Kingdom drafts, he has this uncanny ability of weaseling his way into one of my stream drafts. Someone go back and watch the tape. I think he's like 4 for 4 on 4 straight weeks of ending up in one of these Deposit Kingdom drafts. But we love Davis. Go subscribe to the Davis Maddock YouTube channel. He's been doing a ton of Battle Royale content as well. I would say those are my 3 favorite spots for Battle Royale content. Of course, right here on the Deposit Kingdom, my guys over at the Badge Bros and Davis Maddock's YouTube channel. If you want to get as much Battle Royale content as possible, that is where to do it. So on this team, because we know we have the quarterback and tight end already planned out, we can go ahead and focus on just running back and wide receivers. Davis takes Amon-Ra here. We'll go ahead and grab Jahmyr Gibbs again, and then we'll grab likely one of these wide receivers here. I still really like Jaden Reed. I have an article up on Fantasy Life every week. I hand out DFS awards. It's just a vehicle, a silly vehicle for me to talk about my favorite plays. And I do specifically on DraftKings because the ownership just isn't going to be there. I love going back to the Packers in this matchup. It's obviously a little bit more popular on Underdog, but like, look at what Wicks last week was drafted in the majority of contests. We were already talking about him earlier. And now he's drafted in only 20%, has an ADP of 35.3. And I know Dobbs is back, but I don't think that much has changed. I think it's an equally good matchup. So I like going back to Wicks in various formats this week. Let's go ahead and do AJ Brown. We haven't selected him on a team. We've already done a Mike Evans team. We did an Amon-Ra team. Let's get AJ Brown here at the top. So we got Jahmyr Gibbs, AJ Brown, and we'll see what other running back wide receiver pairing we want to do at the 3-4 turn. And then we'll reserve our 5-6 turn for Justin Fields and Pat Freiermuth. Let's see if I can give you guys some of my other players that I kind of think are undervalued or could be some good scrolls. Obviously in the video, we only get to highlight a few of them. I did mention Tony Pollard before. I do like him a lot this week. Both Panthers guys look really good to me again. Chuba Hubbard. I'm talking now about some of the plays who are getting drafted a good amount of the time, but still could be undervalued relative to how they project. I think Deontay and Chuba both look good to me. Tank Dell, I was on him last week. We now have another spot here without Nico Collins. The only kind of downside to the Tank Dell is this team total is really low. You got both the team total and the overall game total, 38 game total. They're 7-point favorites. They're getting Joe Mixon back. Maybe they run the ball a little bit more, but I will have some Tank Dell as a scroll again without Nico Collins in the lineup. But yeah, let's see what kind of picks we want to do here at running back and wide receiver. This is the part where I don't mind just scrolling a little bit here. Let's see. What are some guys we like? We could do, I mentioned Deontay Johnson. Let's do a little teammate pairing here. Let's do like a Chuba and Deontay potentially. I guess I could have done a Pollard and Deontay as well. But I don't mind these pairings, right? You know, Carolina's at home versus Atlanta. They have a pretty good total in this game. And again, just because we're correlating with our stack doesn't mean we have to stop correlating in our lineup. You know, I saw the running back wide receiver pairings hit a ton last year. I've referenced it before, the Evans, Rashad Whites, the Devon Achane and Tyreek Hills. If you get two players where the offense is really condensed around them, and they scored 25 to 30 points, you can capture the majority of that production and only have to get one thing right. And so this is another spot too. The cash game bros over on DraftKings this week, they love this Carolina Atlanta game. It's going to be used a ton. So we're going to lean into that here. We're going to do a little Chuba and Deontay, and then we'll wrap up with our unique low-owned stack of Justin Fields and Freiermuth. And you can see here, Justin Fields, 10% projected ownership, Pat Freiermuth, 3%. That gets us a very unique roster here. And then we have kind of one-off Gibbs and A.J. Brown. You know, we're playing for alpha games from those guys. We're playing for a Carolina smash, and then we're playing for a Pittsburgh smash on the road at Las Vegas. So we will see here. As long as we do not get sniped, we will be good to go here. The drafter behind us does not have a quarterback or tight end yet either. We'll take Fields first. He would be the one maybe more likely to go. I really, really doubt we're going to get sniped on Freiermuth. Let's go ahead and check in on our friend Davis Maddox, see what he's cooking up. He's got Lamar Jackson at 9, Montgomery, Amon-Ra, and Trey McBride. So he's just been doing a little value hunting. Let's go ahead and see if Davis has a bit of a scroll. And oh my God, did Justin Fields go? Are you kidding me? This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. Unreal. Unreal here. Let's see. Do we have any other potential stacks? This is what we're going to do. We're going to manufacture a different stack. And I'm still going to tout the real FF Fields and Freiermuth, but I am not re-recording this video. Just trust in the majority of your drafts. You will be able to get that. Let's see what we want to do here. Let's get a fun stack. Yeah, let's, can we get a fun low owned stack here? We could do, let's do CJ Stroud and Schultz. That's what we'll do here. We'll keep the theme of getting to a quarterback tight end combo that isn't getting drafted a ton, but just know my preference is very much to do the Justin Fields Freiermuth. So yeah, CJ Stroud 24%, Schultz 2.9%. So Stroud a little bit more popular than Fields, not in this draft, but we'll still accomplish our mission. We didn't get the real FF. We got the real SS. The real SS. There you go. Fields and Freiermuth to Stroud and Schultz. So we managed still to keep some alliteration intact here. We'll grab Dalton Schultz and we will shake our fist at this Fields drafter here. I swear to God, it always happens. I'm like, this guy's projecting for sub 10% ownership. And then he goes at pick 4 or 5 in my draft, of course, to the Pickens drafter. Honestly, not a bad stack. I'm just mad because my content equity was ruined. As always, if you guys want my last minute thoughts for the slate each week, I do a DFS cram for YouTube members on the Pete Overzet live stream channel. That's every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We go through the slate from both an Underdog and DraftKings perspective. I share my favorite plays, who I'm actually clicking in the morning as stuff changes. I also react to inactive news at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We do a couple drafts, we build pick'ems. It's a great time. The link is down below. You just go to that channel and join the Hand Builders and Opto Bros tier and support the channel as a YouTube member. All right, that's it. Good luck in week 6. Let me know in the comments, who are your hidden gems this week?